The Galactic Council station floated in space like a giant crystal. It caught the light from 2 suns and threw rainbow colors across the darkness. Ships from 12 different alien species sat in the docking bays. Each ship looked more beautiful than the last. Some were made of living metal that moved like water. Others were covered in glowing symbols that changed colors. A few looked like they were made from captured starlight itself. Then the human ship arrived. The HSS Endurance came slowly toward the station. It did not shine. It did not glow. It looked like someone had built it from scrap metal and prayers. The hull was covered in patches of different colors where repairs had been made over the years. Welding marks crossed the surface like scars. Parts of the ship did not match other parts. It looked like 3 different ships had been stuck together by someone who did not care about making it pretty. Inside the station, Commander Velcris watched the human ship approach. He was from the Arxelian species. His people made the most beautiful ships in the galaxy. Ships that looked like works of art. Ships that moved through space like dancers. He looked at the Endurance and laughed. "Is that really their ship?" he said into the open communication channel. "It looks like it might fall apart before it finishes docking." Other voices joined in. Species from across the galaxy added their own jokes and comments. Someone said the humans must have found it in a junkyard. Another said it looked older than some planets. A third voice wondered if humans knew how to build real spaceships at all. On the bridge of the Endurance, Captain Hajun Kim heard every word. The communication channel was open. The aliens wanted him to hear, wanted him to feel small. He said nothing. His face showed nothing. He had heard worse things than jokes about his ship. Next to him, Engineer Minji Park checked her instruments. Her hands moved over the controls with the ease of long practice. She had served on this ship for 15 years. Her father had served on it before her. She knew every pipe, every wire, every bolt. "They think we are stupid," she said quietly. "Let them think what they want," Hajun replied. "Dock the ship." The Endurance moved into its assigned docking bay. Despite its rough appearance, it docked perfectly. Not a single thruster out of place. Not one moment of hesitation. The ship settled into position like it had done this 1,000 times before. Because it had, Ambassador Taewon Lee stood near the airlock. He wore his best uniform. He had prepared a speech. This was supposed to be humanity's great moment. The day they joined the Galactic Council. The day they became equals with the great species of the galaxy. Instead, he felt like a beggar asking for scraps. The airlock opened. Taewon walked into the council station with his head high. Behind him came Captain Hajun and a small crew. They walked through corridors filled with aliens who stopped to stare at them. Some pointed. Some whispered. None looked impressed. The council chamber was enormous. It could hold thousands. Today it was full. Every species wanted to see the humans who thought they deserved a seat on the council. The chamber fell silent as the human delegation entered. High Counselor Thraxus sat in the center of the great circle of seats. He was very old, perhaps the oldest living being in the galaxy. His species, the Korvath, had been traveling between stars when most other species were still learning to make fire. He looked at the humans with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. "Welcome," Thraxus said. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard it. "You come seeking membership in this council. You come asking to be recognized as equals. Tell us why we should accept you." Ambassador Taewon began his speech. He talked about human achievements, about the colonies they had built, about the trade they had established, about their science and culture. He spoke well. He had practiced, but he could see it was not working. The council members looked bored. Some were not even listening. Commander Velcris sat with his arms crossed, a small smile on his face. When Taewon finished, Velcris stood up. "A pretty speech," he said. "But words mean little. We judge species by their technology, by their ships, by what they can do, not what they can say." He paused for effect. "We saw your ship. That broken, patched, sad excuse for a vessel. Is that the best humanity can build?" Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not everyone laughed, but enough did. Taewon felt his face grow hot. His hands formed fists at his sides. Captain Hajun stepped forward. He looked at Velcris. Then he looked at Thraxus. "The Endurance is not our newest ship," he said calmly. "It is our oldest, clearly," Velcris said with another laugh. "Perhaps you should build new ones instead of flying ancient relics." "How old is it?" asked a voice from the council. One of the Luminari representatives, a species known for their careful record-keeping. Engineer Minji spoke for the first time. Her voice was clear and proud. The HSS Endurance was commissioned 1,047 years ago. It has been in continuous service ever since. Silence fell over the chamber. Complete silence. The kind of silence that happens when everyone is trying to understand something impossible. 1,000 years. A millennium. Most species in the Council had been spacefaring for less time than that. The Luminari had only left their home planet 600 years ago. The Arxelians had been traveling space for 800 years. Even their oldest ships were barely 200 years old. That cannot be right, Velcris said. But his voice had lost its mockery. No ship can last that long. The materials would fail. The systems would break down. It is impossible, and yet, Minji said simply, here it is. High Counselor Thraxus leaned forward in his seat. For the first time in many years, he looked interested. Really interested. 1,000 years, he said slowly, in continuous service. Not preserved in a museum. Not retired. Active service. Yes, Counselor, Captain Hajun said. Thraxus stood. When he stood, everyone paid attention. He was the oldest member of the Council. The wisest. The one who had seen more history than anyone alive? I would like to see this ship, he said. I would like to see how humans build something that lasts 1,000 years. Captain Kim, would you give me a tour? Hajun bowed his head. It would be an honor, High Counselor. The chamber erupted in whispers. Council members talked to each other in dozens of languages. This was not how the day was supposed to go. Humans were supposed to be rejected, sent away, told to come back when they had real ships and real technology. Instead, the High Counselor himself was asking for a tour. Asking to see the ship they had all mocked. Commander Velcris sat down heavily. He looked at the human ship displayed on the viewing screens around the chamber. It still looked old, still looked patched and broken. But now when he looked at it, he saw something different. Something that had survived 1,000 years. Something that had lasted longer than any ship his people had ever built. And for the first time, Commander Velcris felt something he had not felt in a very long time. He felt afraid, not of the humans, not of their weapons or their strength. He was afraid of what it meant that they could build something that lasted so long, afraid of what other secrets they might have, afraid that his people, for all their beautiful ships and advanced technology, might have forgotten something important, something the humans still remembered. How to build things that last. High Counselor Thraxus walked slowly down the corridor toward the docking bay. Behind him came a group of council members and technical experts. Commander Velcris was there, so was Scientist Ryloth, the best materials expert the Arxelian species had. Others from different species followed. They all wanted to see the ship that was supposedly 1,000 years old. Most of them did not believe it. They thought the humans were lying. Or mistaken. Ships did not last 1,000 years. It was not possible. Materials broke down. Systems failed. Technology became outdated. Every species knew this. It was a law of the universe as certain as gravity. The airlock door opened. Captain Hajun stood on the other side waiting. Next to him was Engineer Minji. Behind them, the interior of the Endurance stretched away into shadows. Welcome aboard, Hajun said. They stepped inside. The corridor was not like the corridors in their own ships. It was not smooth and perfect. The walls showed signs of age. Pipes ran along the ceiling, some newer than others. The floor was marked with countless footsteps. Everything looked used. Everything looked old, but everything also looked maintained, clean, cared for. There was no dirt, no rust, no broken equipment. The ship might be old, but someone took very good care of it. Scientist Ryloth pulled out a scanner. He pointed it at the wall. The device beeped and showed readings. His eyes went wide. This hull material, he said slowly. It is self-repairing. At the molecular level, Commander Velcris stepped closer. We have that technology. It is very new, very advanced. Our newest ships have it. Yes, Ryloth said. And it fails after 20 or 30 years. The nanomachines break down. They stop working. He looked at his scanner again. According to this, these nanomachines have been working for over 1,000 years. That should be impossible. Engineer Minji smiled slightly. Human nanomachines are different. We do not make them to work fast. We make them to work forever. They repair slowly, but they never stop. The group moved deeper into the ship. They saw the welding marks up close now. What they had thought were signs of poor construction were actually something else, something brilliant. These seams, Thraxis said, running his hand along one. They are intentional. Yes, Minji replied. They are stress points. When the ship takes damage, these seams absorb the impact. They crack and bend instead of letting the force spread through the whole hull. We can replace a seam. We cannot replace the entire ship. One of the luminary engineers spoke up. Our ships are built as single pieces, perfect and seamless. When they break, they shatter. Exactly, Hajun said. That is why your ships do not last. They reached the engine room. It was massive. Engines of different types sat side by side. Some looked new. Others looked ancient. Pipes and wires connected everything in what seemed like chaos. But as the technical experts looked closer, they realized it was not chaos at all. It was layers. Generations of technology built one on top of another. You have 6 different propulsion systems, Ryloth said in disbelief. Why? Minji walked to a control panel. Because space is not the same everywhere. Near a star we use solar collection. In deep space we use fusion. Near a black hole we use gravitational assist. When everything fails, we have chemical backup. The ship can go anywhere and always get home. Your ships are specialists, Hajun added. Perfect for one thing. Ours is a survivor. Good enough at everything. Lieutenant Jiwan Choi joined them in the engine room. She was young, but she moved through the ship like she had been born there. In a way, she had. Her great-grandmother had served on this ship. Her grandmother. Her mother. Now her. My family has served on the Endurance for 4 generations, she said when Thraxis asked. We are not the only ones. 12 families on this crew have ancestors who served here. Some of us have never lived anywhere else. This is not just a ship to you, Thraxis said quietly. It is home. Yes, G1 said simply. Dr. Yunahan met them in one of the corridors. She was the ship's doctor and historian. She had something to show them. She led them to a long wall covered in names. Thousands and thousands of names carved into metal plates. The memorial wall, Yuna said. Every person who has died while serving on this ship. Over 10,000 names. 10,000 lives given in service. The alien visitors fell silent. They read the names. The dates. Some people had died in battles. Some in accidents. Some had simply grown old while serving aboard the ship and died in their sleep. The dates went back centuries. Name after name after name. Commander Velkris reached out and touched one name. Kim Jisoo. He read the date. 812 years ago. My ancestor, Hajun said softly. The first of my family to serve here. Velkris pulled his hand back like the wall had burned him. Your family has served on this ship for 800 years? Yes, 27 generations of my family have been captains of the Endurance. Each one taught the next. Each one passed down knowledge. How to fix things. How to keep the ship alive. How to honor those who came before. The tour continued. Hajun showed them the scars. The patches. The repairs. Each one had a story. He pointed to a section of hull that looked newer than the rest. Plasma storm, he said. Near a neutron star. 300 years ago. The radiation should have killed everyone, but the hull held. Barely. We limped to the nearest station and spent a year in repairs. He showed them scorch marks on another section. Pirate attack. 500 years ago. They had weapons we had never seen before. Energy weapons that melted through our shields. We had to fight them in close combat. Ship to ship, we won. But it cost us. 30 crew members died that day. He showed them a section covered in newer panels. Asteroid collision. 60 years ago. One of the engines was destroyed completely. The main reactor was damaged. We had to travel on emergency power for 3 months to reach help. Everyone on board took turns manually pumping coolant to keep the remaining reactor from melting down. We lost 8 people, but we saved the ship. Every scar had a story. Every repair was a memory. The ship was not just metal and machines. It was history. It was legacy. It was proof that humans did not give up. Ever. When the tour ended, the group stood in the main corridor near the airlock. No one spoke for a long time. They had come here expecting to find an old ship barely holding together. Instead, they found something that challenged everything they believed about engineering and technology. Finally, Thraxis spoke. My people once built things like this. Long ago, before we became advanced. Before we learned to make perfect things, we made things that lasted. Then we forgot how. We thought we had moved beyond such primitive methods. He looked at Hajun. But you never forgot. You never stopped building for the future. For your children's children's children. We build things we can fix, Hajun said. Things we can maintain. Things that our descendants will be able to use. What good is a perfect ship if it only lasts 50 years? Scientist Ryloth was still staring at his scanner. He had been taking readings throughout the entire tour. Now he looked up at Velcris Commander, he said quietly. Every system on this ship is redundant. Everything has a backup, and a backup for the backup. If our newest flagship, the Sovereign Glory, took the damage this ship has survived, it would have been destroyed 100 times over. Commander Velcris said nothing. What could he say? He had mocked this ship, called it weak, called it primitive. Now he understood. The ship was not weak. It was the strongest vessel he had ever seen. Not because of weapons or shields, but because it refused to die. As they walked back to the station, Velcris looked back one more time at the Endurance. It still looked old, still looked patched and broken. But now he saw the truth. Every patch was a victory. Every repair was proof of survival. The ship wore its scars with pride, and Commander Velcris knew that he needed to learn from these humans. His people needed to learn, because building things that last was not primitive. It was the most advanced skill of all. The council chamber had a special room for historical records. It was where important events were stored, where treaties were kept, where the history of the galaxy lived. Now the entire council gathered there to see something they could barely believe. Dr. Yuna Han stood at the center of the room. Around her, holographic displays came to life. They filled the space with light and data. A timeline stretched across the entire chamber. It started 1,000 years in the past and reached all the way to today. This is the complete service record of the HSS Endurance, Yuna said. Every mission, every battle, every repair, everything is documented. The timeline began to move. It showed the day the Endurance was built. Earth was different then. Humans had only just begun to explore their own solar system. The ship was young and new. Its hull was shiny. Everything worked perfectly. Its first mission was simple. Travel to the nearest star system. Map the planets, come home. The journey took 3 years. The ship performed perfectly. When it returned, the crew reported success. But they also reported something else. They had seen things in deep space. Strange things, beautiful things, dangerous things. The ship went out again and again. Each mission pushed further into unknown space. Each mission brought back new knowledge, new discoveries. And slowly the ship began to change. Systems were upgraded. New equipment was added. The crew learned what worked and what did not. Then 200 years into its service, something happened. The timeline showed it clearly. The Endurance encountered another species, the Arxelians. Humans and Arxelians met for the first time in the darkness between stars. Commander Velcris leaned forward. He knew this story. It was taught to every Arxelian child, the day they met the humans. But his people's records did not mention a specific ship. That was us? He asked. The Endurance was there? Yes, Yuna said. First contact. The Endurance was humanity's ambassador. The meeting was peaceful. Trade began. Knowledge was shared. The timeline continued. 300 years ago, the Tendril Collective suffered a plague, a disease that spread through their bioships. Millions were dying. Their entire civilization was at risk. The Endurance appeared in their records. It brought medicine. It helped evacuate dying colonies. It stayed for 2 years, helping where it could. A Tendril representative stood up in the chamber. She was old, very old. She had been alive during the plague. I was there, she said, her voice shaking. I was a child. I remember the human ship. It looked so different from our organic vessels. So strange. But the humans saved my colony. They saved thousands of colonies. We owe them our survival. The timeline showed battles. Many battles. The Endurance had fought pirates who attacked trade routes. It had fought rogue AI that tried to destroy organic life. It had fought in wars between species, always on the side of peace. Always trying to stop the fighting. Archivist Quelix, a Korvath historian, was cross-referencing everything. He compared the Endurance's records with the Council's own historical database. Every event matched. Every date was correct. The ship had been there for so many important moments. According to our records, Quelix said, this ship has been present at 43 major historical events. Events that shaped the galaxy we live in today. We never knew it was the same ship each time. Because we do not name our ships after battles or victories, Hajun explained. We name them after values: endurance, persistence, hope. The name tells you what the ship represents, not what it has done. The timeline showed something else: rescue missions. The Endurance had saved ships from 43 different species. Some were council members. Some were not. It did not matter. When someone needed help in space, the Endurance came if it could. 1,247 rescue operations, Una said. More than 12,000 lives saved directly. Many more saved indirectly through the delivery of supplies and medicine. Counselor Ixara, the Luminari representative, was staring at the timeline. Her species had only been spacefaring for 600 years. She realized something that made her feel very small. This ship is older than my civilization's entire history in space, she said quietly. My people learned to build starships. We built our first colonies. We joined the council. All while this single ship was flying. High Counselor Thraxus nodded slowly. His species, the Korvath, was one of the oldest in the galaxy. But even he was impressed. My people have records going back 5,000 years, he said. We have built many ships, thousands of ships, but none have lasted more than 300 years. Most fail much sooner. How do you do it? Admiral Kyung-ho-yoon appeared as a hologram. He commanded the human fleet. He had come to answer that exact question. We do not build ships to be perfect, he said. We build them to be maintainable. Every part can be replaced. Every system has backups. When something breaks, we fix it. When something is damaged, we repair it. We do not throw away a ship just because it is old. We make it better. But technology advances, someone said from the council. Old ships become obsolete. Only if you cannot upgrade them, Kyung-ho replied. The Endurance has been upgraded hundreds of times. Its computers are modern. Its weapons are current. Its engines use the latest designs. But the basic structure remains. The hull, the frame, the core systems, those were built to last forever. He gestured to the timeline. Look at the battle record. 147 major combat engagements. The ship was reported destroyed 3 times. 3 times enemy species thought they had won. 3 times the Endurance survived and limped away. Each time it was rebuilt, made stronger, made better. Commander Velkris was looking at those battles. He recognized several. In Arxelian history they were recorded as victories. But the records mentioned mysterious human vessels that appeared at critical moments. Vessels that turned impossible situations into victories. The Battle of Krellick Station, he said. 400 years ago, a pirate fleet was about to destroy a major trade hub. Our fleet was days away. Then a human ship appeared. It fought alone against 12 pirate vessels. Held them off until we arrived. We always wondered what ship that was. The Endurance, Una confirmed. Velkris sat down heavily. The ship he had mocked. The ship he had called weak. That ship had saved an Arxelian station. Had saved thousands of Arxelian lives. Had fought impossible odds and won. Lieutenant Ji-won stepped forward. She wanted to explain something that the aliens might not understand. This ship is not just metal and machines to us, she said. It is family. My great-grandmother served here. She taught my grandmother everything about the engines. My grandmother taught my mother. My mother taught me. We do not just maintain systems. We maintain tradition, knowledge, history. She pointed to the timeline. Every person who has served on the Endurance leaves something behind. A repair technique, a modification, a piece of wisdom. The ship gets smarter every generation. Better, not because we replace it, but because we improve it. Admiral Kyung-ho added one more thing. Many of the standard procedures used in space travel today were developed on the Endurance. Emergency docking protocols, long-range communication systems, deep space navigation techniques. This ship was not just a vessel. It was a laboratory, a school, a testing ground for ideas that the entire galaxy now uses. The timeline reached the present day. The last entry was their arrival at the council station, their petition for membership. The mockery they had endured. And now this moment, the council finally understanding what they had dismissed so easily. High Counselor Thraxus stood. When he stood, everyone became quiet. I have made an error, he said. We all have. We judge this ship by its appearance. We judge humanity by one vessel. We were wrong. This ship has done more for galactic civilization than most species have done in their entire existence. He looked at Ambassador Taiwan. The question is not whether humanity deserves membership in this council. The question is whether we are worthy of having them join us. Thraxus turned to face the entire council. I call for an immediate vote on humanity's membership. But Commander Velcris raised his hand. Wait, he said. Before we vote, I wish to speak. Everyone turned to look at him, the one who had mocked the humans most loudly. What could he possibly have to say now? Commander Velcris stood before the council. His pride was wounded. His beliefs were shaken. But he was a warrior, and warriors did not give up easily, even when they were wrong. The Endurance has a glorious history, he said. No one can deny that. But history is the past. We must think about the present, about the future. Old achievements do not prove current strength. He looked at Captain Hajun. I propose a challenge. The same test we give all advanced military vessels. 3 phases: navigation, combat, survival. If the Endurance can pass this test, then no one can question humanity's right to join this council. Ambassador Taiwan started to protest. This was an insult. Another delay. But Captain Hajun raised his hand. We accept, Hajun said calmly. Taiwan turned to him. Captain, you do not have to do this. Yes, I do, Hajun replied. Because even after everything we have shown them, some still doubt. So we will remove all doubt. The Endurance will take their test. High Counselor Thraxus looked amused rather than concerned. He had seen the ship. He knew what it could do. But he nodded very well. The testing arena is prepared. You may begin when ready. The testing arena was a massive space near the station. It was filled with obstacles. Artificial asteroids, debris fields, dangerous zones of radiation and gravity. Combat drones waited in hidden positions. Environmental hazards could be activated on command. It was designed to push ships to their limits. Most ships that took this test were new, fresh from construction yards, perfect and untested. The Endurance was neither new nor perfect. But it had one advantage. It had survived real dangers far worse than any simulation. The council gathered in observation rooms. They watched on screens as the Endurance moved into position. Observer Maltrix, a neutral species arbiter, explained the rules. Complete all 3 phases. Avoid damage when possible. Demonstrate skill, not just power. The fastest completion time was 1 hour and 18 minutes set by an Arxelian cruiser 5 years ago. Begin Phase 1, Maltrix announced. Navigation. Lieutenant Jiwan sat at the helm. She had trained for this her entire life. Not for this specific test, but for everything it represented. Flying in impossible conditions, making the ship do things it should not be able to do. She looked at the obstacle course ahead and smiled. This will be easy, she said. The Endurance launched forward. It moved through the asteroid field like a dancer. The ship was large, a cruiser-class vessel. It should have moved slowly and carefully. Instead, it spun and dove and twisted like a fighter craft. Jiwan knew every response time, every thruster capability, every limit of the ship, and she pushed those limits. In the observation room, engineers watched in disbelief. Ships that size did not move like that, could not move like that. The physics did not allow it, except the Endurance did move like that. It threaded through gaps barely wider than its hull. It used gravity wells to slingshot around obstacles. It killed its engines and drifted through dangerous zones, then reactivated them at the perfect moment. Every move was precise. Every choice was exactly right. The navigation phase was supposed to take at least 30 minutes. The Endurance completed it in 19 minutes and 43 seconds. Phase 1 complete, Maltrix announced. His voice showed surprise. Proceeding to Phase 2. Combat drones activated throughout the arena. They came from all directions. Different types. Different weapons. Different programming. Some used energy weapons. Some used projectiles. Some tried to ram the ship. The test was designed to be overwhelming, to force the ship to use everything it had. Tactical Officer Do-Hyun Kang took control of the weapons. He was calm, always calm. Even when the situation was chaotic, his hands were steady. Engaging targets, he said quietly. The Endurance did not use overwhelming firepower. It did not need to. Do-Hyun targeted each drone with precision. 1 shot, 1 kill. He switched between different weapons depending on the target. Energy weapons for shielded drones, projectiles for fast-moving ones, point defense systems for missiles. But it was more than just shooting. The ship adapted. When drones tried to swarm from one direction, the Endurance rotated to present its strongest shields. When they tried to flank, the ship used debris as cover. When they tried new tactics, the ship countered with different tactics. Commander Velcris watched with growing disbelief. This was not how ships fought in simulations. This was how ships fought in real combat. With intelligence. With experience. With the knowledge that came from 1,000 years of survival. The combat phase took 17 minutes. Every drone was destroyed. The Endurance had not taken a single hit. Phase 2 complete, Maltrix said. He sounded impressed now. Proceeding to Phase 3, survival. The environmental challenge began. The arena filled with hazards. Radiation storms that could fry electronics. Temperature extremes that could melt hull plates or freeze systems solid. Gravitational stress that could tear a ship apart. Each hazard lasted 5 minutes. Ships had to endure all of them. Engineer Minji coordinated the response. She knew every system on the ship, knew how they worked together, knew what they could survive. Route power to forward shields, she ordered. Shut down non-essential systems. Activate thermal regulators. The Endurance endured. The radiation storm hit. Shields glowed white-hot. Inside the ship, crew members felt the heat. But the systems held. The self-repairing hull worked overtime, fixing damage as fast as it occurred. The temperature dropped. Extreme cold. Systems began to freeze. But Minji had prepared for this. Internal heaters activated. Insulation deployed. The ship kept working. Then came the gravitational stress. The arena created artificial gravity wells. They pulled at the ship from different directions. Most vessels would be torn apart. The Endurance's hull groaned. Metal creaked. But those intentional seams, the ones the aliens had mocked, those seams absorbed the stress. They bent but did not break. In the observation room, scientist Ryloth was taking readings. He looked at observer Maltrix. The gravitational stress is at 120% of test specifications, he said. You should stop the test. The ship might be damaged. Maltrix moved to end the test. But Minji's voice came over the communication channel. Do not stop the test, she said calmly. We have experienced worse. Continue. The test continued. The Endurance survived everything. Emerged from Phase 3 with minor damage. Nothing critical. Nothing that could not be repaired quickly. Then something happened. Something unexpected. An alarm sounded on the station. A real alarm. Not part of the test. Emergency, a voice announced. Civilian transport in distress. Main drive failure. Ship breaking apart. 347 passengers on board. The transport was close. Too close to the testing arena. It had been waiting to watch the test. Now it was dying. Captain Hajun did not hesitate. All crew, rescue operations. Jiwon, get us there. Dohyun, prepare tractor beams. Minji, ready all docking ports. The Endurance broke from the test. It moved toward the dying transport at maximum speed. The transport was breaking apart. Pieces flying off into space. Life pods launching in all directions. The Endurance worked with precision. It caught life pods with tractor beams. It docked with the transport's emergency ports. Crew members moved through the ship, evacuating passengers. 15 minutes of controlled chaos. 15 minutes where every second mattered. The last passenger was pulled aboard the Endurance seconds before the transport's reactor failed. The explosion was massive, but the Endurance had already moved to a safe distance. All 347 passengers were safe. Not one life lost. In the observation room, there was complete silence. The test was forgotten. Everyone had watched the rescue, had seen the Endurance respond to a real emergency while simultaneously completing the survival challenge. Observer Maltrix spoke first. Total time for all 3 phases. 23 minutes, 11 seconds. New record. Highest score in testing history. And that includes the time spent on the rescue operation. Commander Velcris walked slowly to where Captain Hajun waited. The human captain looked tired. Rescue operations were exhausting even when everything went right. Velcris stopped in front of him. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he spoke. I was wrong, Velcris said. I was wrong about your ship. Wrong about your people. Wrong about everything. I mocked you, insulted you, and you responded by saving lives. I have one question, Captain Kim. One question I need answered. He looked into Hajun's eyes. Will you teach us? Will you teach the Arxelian fleet how to build ships like yours? Ships that last? Because our beautiful vessels are failing, and we do not know how to fix them. The council chamber was different this time. There was no mockery, no jokes, no dismissive looks. Instead, there was respect. And more than that, there was need. Commander Velkris stood before the assembled council. Next to him was Captain Bora Shin, his superior officer, the commander of the Arxelian flagship Sovereign Glory. She was a proud woman, a skilled commander, but today she looked worried. We have a problem, Velkris said. A problem we have been hiding. Our ships are failing. The Sovereign Glory is only 12 years old. It is the pride of our fleet, the most advanced ship we have ever built, and it is already showing stress fractures. Our engineers estimate it has 10 years left. Maybe less, Captain Bora continued. This is not just one ship. Our entire fleet suffers from the same problem. We build beautiful vessels, powerful vessels, but they do not last. In the past century, we have lost 17 ships not to battle, but to structural failure. They simply fell apart. Other council members began to speak. The Tendril Collective admitted their bioships degraded after 30 years. The Luminari ships required rare materials that were becoming harder to find. The Korvath had ancient ships that no one alive knew how to repair properly. Species after species shared the same story. They had advanced technology, beautiful ships, but nothing lasted. We have become dependent on constant replacement, one counselor said. We build new ships because we cannot maintain old ones. But this is not sustainable. Resources are limited. Construction yards are overwhelmed. We are trapped in a cycle we cannot escape. High Counselor Thraxus listened to it all. Then he spoke. We have forgotten an important truth, one that our ancestors knew. Building something is not enough. We must build things that can be maintained, that can be repaired, that can last beyond our own lifetimes. He looked at Ambassador Taiwan. Humanity has not forgotten this truth. They build for the future, for their children, for generations yet to be born. This is wisdom we need. The vote on humanity's council membership was called. Every species voted yes. There were no objections, no delays. The decision was unanimous. But High Counselor Thraxus raised his hand. Membership alone is not enough, he said. I propose something more, something new. We should create a position on this council. A keeper of continuity, someone who advises on long-term planning, on sustainability, on building things that last. He looked around the chamber. I nominate humanity for this position. They have proven they understand what most of us have forgotten, how to think in centuries instead of decades, how to build legacies that outlive the builders. The council erupted in discussion. This was unprecedented. A brand new position, created specifically for one species. But as they discussed, they realized it made sense. The galaxy needed this. They needed this, the vote was called. Again, it was unanimous. Ambassador Taiwan stood. He was supposed to give a speech. But words felt insufficient after everything that had happened. We accept, he said simply. We accept membership. We accept the position of keeper of continuity. But we have one condition. The council waited. Knowledge must flow both ways, Taiwan continued. We will teach you what we know about building things that last, about maintenance, about thinking in generations. But we wish to learn from you as well, your technology, your science, your cultures. True membership means growing together, learning together. High Counselor Thraxus smiled. It was the first time many had seen him smile in decades. Agreed, he said. Welcome to the Galactic Council, humanity. 6 months passed. The Endurance did not return to Earth. Instead, it remained at the council station. But it was no longer alone. Ships from across the galaxy docked with it, sent teams to study it, to learn from it. Engineer Minji taught classes in the engine room. She showed Arxelian engineers how to design systems with redundancy, how to make repairs that would last, how to think about maintenance from the beginning of design, not as an afterthought. Commander Velkris had become an unexpected ally. He spent every day aboard the Endurance learning, taking notes, asking questions. He was not the only one. Engineers from dozens of species came to learn. In the council chamber, Ambassador Taiwan worked with representatives from every species. They created new standards for ship construction, new requirements for maintainability, new ways of thinking about technology that would serve not just the present, but the future. A team of mixed-species engineers began designing something new. A ship that combined human durability with alien innovations, Arxelian elegance with human practicality, Korvath wisdom with luminary efficiency. They called it Endurance 2. The original Endurance remained in service. In fact, it received a new mission. A mission that would take 1,000 years. A circumnavigation of the entire galaxy. It would carry council representatives to every member species, every colony, every outpost, spreading knowledge, building connections, creating unity. Lieutenant Jiwan was promoted to first officer. She stood on the bridge, looking at the star charts for their journey. The route would take them through unknown regions, past dangers no one had mapped. It would be the adventure of a lifetime, of many lifetimes. If family tradition holds, she said to Captain Hajun, my great-grandchildren will be crewing this ship when we return. Hajun smiled. That is the idea. We build for them, for all the generations to come. On the day the Endurance departed on its 1,000-year mission, the entire council gathered to see it off. The ship that they had mocked. The ship they had dismissed as old and weak. Now it carried the hopes of the entire galaxy. High Counselor Thraxus stood at a viewing port, watching the Endurance move away from the station. Captain Hajun had come to say goodbye. The two stood in silence for a moment. Then Thraxus spoke. My people once built things to last forever, he said quietly. Ships, stations, cities. We built for 1,000 generations. Then we forgot. We became focused on the present, on making things perfect for ourselves. We stopped thinking about those who would come after. He turned to look at Hajun. Your ship reminded us, reminded all of us, that the greatest achievement is not building something perfect. It is building something that lasts. Something that serves not just us but all the futures yet to come. Hajun bowed his head. We only did what we thought was right. We built the best ship we could. Then we maintained it, improved it, passed it down. That is all. That is everything, Thraxus replied. The Endurance grew smaller in the viewing port. Soon it would activate its deep space drives, would begin a journey that would span a millennium, would visit worlds that had not been contacted in centuries, would carry the message that the galaxy had learned an important lesson. That building things that last is not primitive. It is the most advanced skill of all. Commander Velcris stood with scientist Ryloth watching the same view. The Arxelian commander had changed. He was humbler now, wiser. He had learned something important from the humans. We mocked them, he said. We called their ship weak, fragile, old. We were fools. Ryloth nodded. We judged by appearance, by aesthetics. We forgot that true strength is not about looking powerful. It is about surviving, about enduring, about lasting long enough to matter. That ship is 1,000 years old, Velcris said. It has survived battles we cannot imagine, dangers we have never faced, and it will survive 1,000 more years. Long after our beautiful, perfect ships have turned to dust, the Endurance will still be flying. He paused. That is what we need to learn, not how to build better ships, how to build ships that our grandchildren will fly, that our descendants will maintain. That will carry our legacy into a future we will never see. The Endurance activated its drives, light flared, and then the ship was gone, jumping into the darkness between stars, beginning a journey that would take it to the edge of the galaxy and back, a journey measured not in years or decades but in generations. The ship that had been mocked became a symbol, a reminder, a teacher. It showed the galaxy that true advancement was not about replacing the old with the new. It was about building things that could grow, could adapt, could serve generation after generation. The humans had brought more than just a ship to the council. They had brought a philosophy, a way of thinking, a commitment to the future that went beyond immediate needs and wants. They taught the galaxy something it had forgotten, that the greatest legacy is not what you build for yourself. It is what you build for those who come after. What you pass down, what you ensure will survive long after you are gone. And in teaching this lesson, humanity earned something more valuable than a seat on the council. They earned respect. They earned trust. They earned their place not as equals but as teachers, as guides, as keepers of a wisdom the galaxy desperately needed. The ship that was 1,000 years old sailed into the future, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of countless species. a flying testament to the simple truth that humans had never forgotten. Build things that last. Build for tomorrow. Build for all the tomorrows yet to come. That is how you create a legacy. That is how you build the future. Not by making perfect things that cannot be maintained, but by making good things that can be improved. Forever. The endurance proved it. 1,000 years of service. 1,000 years of survival. 1,000 years of showing that human stubbornness, human practicality, and human long-term thinking could create something greater than any species had imagined.